just wanted to take a little break from working on the deck to just sort of talk some stuff out, like mostly to myself, about disclosure and why, disclosure meaning the disclosure of like aliens or whatever we're getting about that. If we are, right? Signs point to something, at least on my side, right? That's what I've been saying. But obviously, I'm telling you, I'm an experiencer, but there's no data. I'm not connected to any agency. I'm an okay person, but I'm not like a reputable person when it comes to anybody with any level of authority, right? And so I tend to watch a lot of stuff. And the only reason why I even found out about that Sean Ryan podcast was because while I was working, I guess it was the other day, I had on like a live feed of the one of the Las Vegas updates, or it was a clip from one of the Las Vegas press conferences about the gentleman who blew himself up. Because I watched that whole podcast, and here's what I want to say about that. I actually believe the email is real, obviously. But I believe that man is, here's the thing, I believe that man is dead. If he pops up or something, like, of course, like, okay, I was wrong, he's not dead. But that whole, like, theory about him, like, putting a body in there, like, I don't know, maybe, but I really just think he predominantly had PTSD and was messed up from the civilian casualties and the cover-up and keeping things secret. When you're asked to keep stuff like that secret, besides the casualties, the war crimes, and also the type of technology, because I'm curious, just going with, it is absolutely true, right, that there is some form of like, I'm just going to go ahead and call it alien tech, or something that was like back engineered from alien technology. Even if it's not, even if it's just something that's very, very high level, like really out there physics that we've never seen demonstrated before, if it's something like based on nuclear anything, because I wouldn't know, I'm not a scientist. What does long-term exposure to something like that do to somebody as well, is my question. Especially if it's something that's alien, like we wouldn't know, or I would guess, but because this sort of stuff, at least in our military, I'm not talking about throughout history, with our military has only shown up since like the late 40s, 1940s. So I don't know that that's enough time to really understand how that would affect a person, or if they do understand how it would affect a person, maybe they just don't care, which makes sense. But I'm just going with that route, okay? I believe that email's real, but I don't believe everything that was said in the podcast was true. I think a lot of it, at least like the stuff about like missiles and war crimes and all of that stuff, sounds fairly plausible to me. I would guess that the most outlandish thing that people have latched onto is the stuff that would be like UAPs and whatever, and there's just like an immediate like dismissal of that kind of across the board, unless you're a particular sort of person. And I find that interesting. But I've watched like a bunch of the more skeptical side stuff, and like just outright, like these people are lying, which could be the case. I don't believe that. Or it like, it's weird, because I'm going to explain why I don't know that it necessarily, I know this is weird, I don't know that it necessarily matters if it's true or not, that the email's real or not. And I'm going to explain why, okay? But for the stuff that's like a debunker or somebody who's a skeptic, whenever there seems to be like a hardline take on it, it's definitely falling within like a political division. And stuff that tends to make me like more nervous is that a lot of the pro stuff at the moment is coming from like super, like way more right-wing stuff. And I'm not right-wing, so I'm just like, like, I don't know, like maybe it is just like an agenda, but then like how would we factor in the channelers and like all of these other people who all seem very confident that just some form of disclosure is happening this year? Like, that's what I am most curious about. Why are like we all of these disconnected sources, right? As far as I'm aware, at least for me, because not all of the channelers know each other. Okay, and not all of these, like, I would guess, podcasters and intel people, and I've also seen, like, just people who have been around, like, ufology for a long time, like the people who show up at the Consciousness Expo and are on Gaia TV, also being extremely confident about this, and I'm just like, who sent out the memo? Like, what is going on here? And if nothing happens, right, which I don't think that's the case at all, which I'll also explain my current theory on that based on the Sean Ryan, I think it's Sean Ryan show, based on what's going on with that right now and past history with disclosure amongst the government and also former intelligence agents, right? Because that always seems, it's like, oh, well, I'm a former like such and such, and so I'm going to disclose stuff. I'm a whistleblower or whatever. And the thing is, I'm also going to say, I don't know if it matters if everything that they say is true or not. I don't know that it matters. Because what it more seems like to me is, even amongst like the people who don't have anything to do with the government, the podcasters who tend, like, those guys have like a former intelligence, whatever, or army, whatever, special forces, whatever backgrounds. The people who did To the Stars Academy, with the exception of Tom DeLonge, also had like intelligence backgrounds. A lot of the people who are coming out and being like a hardcore, like these people are lying, they also have like intelligence backgrounds and all of this stuff. So like, to me, what it looks like, unless you're getting into the ufology people, but the hardcore ones also were kind of at one point, or still are, like in deep with like political people. Because I listened to this one guy talk about how, like, I don't know how true this is, but like he was saying that To the Stars Academy was actually, like, because I never paid attention to the emails, the Podesta emails and all of that, that To the Stars Academy was something that like Hillary Clinton wanted. And so like, and that all fell apart once Trump became president, because To the Stars Academy ultimately like collapsed and everybody was like, oh, well, all these people are frauds and blah, blah, blah. And here's the thing is, I think the answer to that question is both yes and no. And I think that the Sean, like, if I'm correct about this, right, because my tinfoil hat is on, Sean Ryan is like what Lou Elizondo was going to be. And that's why I'm saying I don't know that it matters necessarily that any of this is true. And but ultimately, like, I am kind of concerned about, like, well, is the alien thing like real? And ultimately, my point of view is going to be yes, based on like my entire life and like my entire like at least one side of my family's life that went like that goes way longer than like the 1940s, like, you know what I mean? Or like before the CIA and everything like was even a thing. And so if we're trying to say that like somebody could be like MK Ultra, that would be like my great grandmother's age as a child, you essentially have to bring like occult master magic CIA agents into it that can go back in time and like MK Ultra people with alien crap like back then. Like that has to be on the table, which I'm fine with it being on the table. But ultimately, I actually find that only slightly more outlandish than the aliens. Than anything else I've been saying, because I actually don't think that that's totally off the table. I really don't. But anyway, I think like watching what's going on online about this particular piece of information, because I'm just like, okay, we have these intelligence sources over here saying that like it's some kind of a thing. We have these intelligence sources over here saying it's like not at all, it's all bunk, and like going out of their way to kind of discredit like the entire podcast, which I had no idea, right? Because once I watched that one podcast just to see the email leak, because I was interested that the FBI agent who was at the conference, the Las Vegas conference, didn't immediately like try to discount it or say like these people are a sham and like blah blah blah. I was interested in that because I was just like, if they're not even trying to discredit it like from rip or say like don't listen to a particular podcaster or something like that, it's either like the situation is really bad. And I think this could be like both of these things could be true. The situation is really bad, and also obviously like deeply political, because I did not know that like Trump had appeared on that guy's podcast. And so I'm like, oh, it might be that particular intelligence people like just won't go after that guy. And it's only going to be like a particular like faction of the intelligence community, former intelligence community, that will go after him. And it's like deeply divided. I think the only thing that matters currently to me right now isn't if the information is true. It is who controls disclosure. And it's sort of like, because I was watching like certain like there are channelers and stuff like that, and people who purport to speak for the beings and all of that. And I've always said that no one person speaks for the beings, but there are frankly like a decent amount of channelers and people who are more on the woo, well, I'm firmly on the like whack woo, all that magical stuff end, who like really go out of their way to try and say like, I'm the only one that speaks for this. If you want like the super exclusive secret information, you have to join our group. Like, we're the ones who've been working on this for years, and we are the ones who represent this, and it's all us. And I'm just like, literally, if disclosure happened, right, is like mass consensus reality disclosure, it's gonna come through SETI, or it's gonna come through the government. It's gonna come through politics, like in America, if it doesn't come from somebody else, which like, I'm wondering, like, are people just knowing that disclosure is going to happen because they want to beat some other country to like disclosure? You know what I mean? Like a disclosure arms race. Because if someone believes that like let's say either China, right? Either China or Russia popped out and was like, we have the alien technology. We have the aliens. It's sort of like whoever does that, it's kind of like in Watchmen, right? It was like America that got superheroes. And so it was like America that had dominance in war. And it like, to me, it's a little bit like that. If another country pops out with disclosure first, it's like implied that they would have like alliances with maybe some sort of like super powerful beings, or they have super powerful back engineered technology, and just saying that could freak people out, right? Could be like, oh, like America is no longer a superpower. So if some other government was like making noise about disclosing aliens, that might force politically like America's disclosure, even if disclosure is like not I don't think disclosure is not a thing, but you know what I mean? And also, who is the face of disclosure? I think originally, probably that narrative has some sort of truth to it. Ooh, that thing about Hillary, because I'm sure if it's showing up in John Podesta's emails, then probably they were involved. And maybe Hillary Clinton wanted to be the disclosure president, and she was going to pick, or the people who were associated with her at the time, they were going to be the faces of disclosure, which was going to make them very, very important, right? And Lou Elizondo was like trying to position himself as the guy, which is dangerous because I don't think he really was, like, he might have had, I don't doubt that most of the people who are flapping their yaps about beings or whatever are completely making stuff up. I just don't think that they have any more information than your average experiencer or channeler. They just have a little bit more of a background in intelligence, and I don't even think that they have like really true information, or they wouldn't have it until like that particular president or whoever is like behind presidents, blah blah blah, decided, all right, now here's the information that you can have, and y'all are going to be the face of disclosure. And so Lou Elizondo was that guy, and then the shit fell apart. And the thing is, if it falls apart and they don't actually give you the information to release through official channels, you are now screwed, because you've been saying all of this stuff and building yourself up with the impression that all of this is going to go forward. And then if there's something like an upset politically, you end up being the fall guy or the fall woman or the fall person, whoever. And here's the thing, this is just about optics, about Lou Elizondo, and my these are my personal feelings. That person always, him and Stephen Greer, like all those people, dislike, intense, just off rip, dislike. That doesn't mean that they don't know stuff about the beings. It's just because I don't like them, okay? But optics wise, Elizondo always came off to me, like, I did not understand like why anyone really like super took him serious. I was just like, this guy is like, there's a type of archetype of like that guy, and it is usually like a former cop or like a former someone who's in the military or whatever, who's like super into like Native American, like they're always like a quarter like Cherokee or something, quarter Navajo, and super into like psi powers and stuff. And I can't really say anything about psi powers, at least, because I'm over here like reading tarot and getting information, so I can't really throw too much shade about that. But it's more the attitude and like the blowhardiness of it that I'm just like, this is corny. And also optically, Tom DeLonge was also awful. Like, he was super corny, and like, to me, that they could only kind of convince Tom DeLonge to do it kind of says a lot to me, because if they could have gotten like a bigger celebrity, they probably would have. And if you notice, they always try to rope in a celebrity, right? Because Stephen Greer, I believe, had roped in like Demi Lovato for a while. And it's just like, it's always some like you're never going to see Taylor Swift unless she has some kind of actual experience that she decides to disclose like publicly just on her own. They're never getting anybody like that, ever, because it's always going to be someone who has a very, very deep personal interest in this subject and has like some sort of influence still, or it's someone who is craving the limelight who doesn't have it, or someone who had the limelight once, doesn't have it very much anymore, and maybe they have interest in the subject or maybe they don't, but like being the face of something like disclosure would be appealing to them. And so in thinking about all of that, and in looking at the Sean Ryan show, obviously, like, I didn't even realize, I was looking at like other like subjects that have like been on that. Like, I had no idea. I was just like, who even is this person? Because that's not a podcast I would ever watch. Because even the topics on there are kind of super like Gaia TV-ish to me. But I mean, you know, whatever. It doesn't mean that there's no truth, absolutely no truth over there. I just think that like, I would just say, don't get too attached to things. Don't get too attached to the story, because probably there's like elements of truth everywhere, but nobody has like the complete picture until somebody pops out, right? Like for real pops out with something. Sean Ryan, the optics of him are a lot better than the optics that were there for To the Stars Academy. the optics of Sean, like the show looks really sleek. It's super serious. Like, he's got that, like, my deep gravelly kind of like, you could cast me in a Jason Bourne, like, bleh, and we're like saying all the cool shit, and bleh, you know, like that. Like, he just looks a lot like to me when I was watching, it was just like, these men are being so dramatic. Just get me to the email, okay? God, like, oh my Lord, we had to build all this stuff up with stupid ads and everything. So there is that element of it. And then there's the fact that, like, there's an obvious kind of like political slant there, which is like conservative, but also like anti-establishment, which is interesting. So we don't trust the government, blah, 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 but we still kind of like work for like, because I saw stuff going around that's saying like, oh, Lou Elizondo might get picked for like Trump's disclosure, looking at that Sean Ryan show and their podcast history and how many views that they get, which I don't even know where the shit that came from. I just feel like, and obviously it works this way in like the entertainment industry where like they're playing around with a bunch of different people who they think are talented. And then when someone kind of like starts popping off, they like throw a whole bunch of money behind that person. But there's like no real plan sort of until that person starts popping off. And then they're like, that's the person who's kind of picked, but you can't really plan for it. In this case, I feel like there is way more planning. And I feel like, at least for like the Trump presidency or whoever is like in the intel agency or whoever behind that stuff, they have decided that Sean Ryan is going to be that guy. He is like, if it's a Trump presidency, I would be willing to put at least $20, okay? At least 15 or 20 bucks saying that like, Sean Ryan is the new disclosure guy. And so that's what I mean by it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the emails are fake. It doesn't matter if the information is fake. It doesn't even matter that if anything, if Lou Elizondo and all of those people said nothing but lies, that doesn't matter either. Because there is real information. Ultimately, there is kind of like a yes or no on the aliens. And based on like a heavy psyop, I would say they kind of want it to be a yes. Just based on like military, like, you know what I mean? Just based on a psychological op on like other countries, like, oh, we have alien tech. And then like, what if another country pops up and it's like, us too, bitch? And it's like, oh my God, now there's like good and like political aliens. Like, no. That's like the outcome. It's just like, that's kind of a bad end as well. Like, ew, like I just want to vibe, but like, you know, it never works that way. So if Trump goes forward and there is a disclosure push, Trump is going to be the disclosure president. And all that really matters is that they are putting information out into the wider community that is getting in front of a lot of eyes, suggesting that there is something to the UAP, that there is some secret program. You think you saw those drones for like and I would rather it be like priming for alien disclosure than I would being like, oh fuck, like we're gonna have some kind of attack from either like China, Russia, or whomever, because that was like another thing. It's like, oh, this is like Russian disinformation. But I feel like, though, if somebody, like, let's say it wasn't China, right? Like, let's say they popped out and said like, oh, it's actually Russia who has access like to the drones, and they're the ones. I feel like there'd be a bunch of people coming out and saying this is like Chinese like, I don't know, like maybe not Chinese disinfo, because like there's no current faction, I don't think, in our country that's like even allied with China like at all. And there is stuff like going on with like Russia, like the Israel and like Ukraine and like all that crap. And then like the resurgence of like anti-ISIS stuff. is also linked to Iran. So I think it's also super interesting that like there was that mention at the end of the podcast about like Trump being under threat from like potential Iranian missiles, which also lends credence to the idea that was circulating around that the drones weren't anything to do with aliens at all. It was about sniffing out like nuclear weapons or whatever. But I actually think they're going for like all three personally. Like if it's a big like psychological operation, I think they're going for all three, that it is literally an attack from some other country, plus those drones that we are using are back engineered from alien tech. And by the way, aliens are real. But I don't like, are they just gonna pop out with like bodies or oh, I heard no. Okay, well, like here's the thing, if they pop out with like bigger ships, that'll be interesting. Like shit that you couldn't possibly be like that's a drone. You know what I mean? I don't know. But it's just like, that's kind of more where I am at the moment with is something real or not. I still think that email is real. I still think it's real. I still think that man literally blew it, like literally shot himself and blew himself up, which is awful. I don't know, it's a question. I don't know. I just feel like, I do not feel like he's alive somewhere. I really don't. But anyway, that's what I mean by that. It almost doesn't matter. It like, let's say that guy, like the email's real, but like, let's say was a paranoid schizophrenic or whatever, and the gravitation, whatever, isn't a thing. It still doesn't matter, because the only thing that matters is that they've introduced the idea into like the public at large. That's the only thing that matters. And so then when they answer the question, everyone's already been primed for it because we have the narrative that's been going already. And so if they say aliens are real, I don't know, it's almost sort of like, that's so weird. Like aliens are real, and with their tech, they're going to protect us from like America's enemies. Like, like I really just don't. I'm hearing a no on that, but it's just like, anyway, that's what I'm thinking with all of that. I feel like people have just been chosen for like who gets to control disclosure. And I feel like a lot of people are trying to do that like in their own way. But because I'm looking at the amount of people who have been saying this stuff about like in the ufology community and like experiencers and stuff like that who have been purporting like alien contact, and all the people in the past who have come out and talked about things. And I look at how no one could possibly compete with the amount of like money and connections that are behind the Sean Ryan show. That's what I'm looking at. And that whoever is like picking these people are trying to put together like a disclosure coalition. It's sort of like, if it's the same people or if it's like a different agency or whatever, it's like they learned from that To the Stars stuff. And they were like, the optics on this have to be way better. And we have to be able to give people an official outlet. It has to be essentially from the government, but it can't be from the government. Like it's got to be anti-establishment government, right? Like that's the only way that people are going to buy this. And still, even then, you're going to have the war of the bifurcated intelligence disinformation communities. Anyway, I am just so tired. I'm so tired, but I wanted to talk about this a little bit just to kind of like clear my own mind and sort of organize my thoughts on the subject matter. I am just like, what I am more interested in at this point, right? I'm interested to see if all of these disparate like sources of information, like people who are like putting this out, the channelers who are like I have been hearing that, and I have no contact with these other channelers, with these other sources who are saying stuff about like this year or the first quarter or something in January. I have no contact with them, and I don't even follow those channels. Like, I don't follow any of those people, and it's only been recently, since all of this stuff has been like kind of popping off, since it was since I gave the reads on essentially the warring occult secret societies, and then there was like stuff about the glowing whites and the drones. And when I got that thing about like no new information until after the full moon, and then I kind of got my little thing that I had put in the text post, and then it was like, oh, like I thought like the information was going to be immediately something about like way bigger ships popping out, but it wasn't. In my case, the more information was the stuff about the deck and getting the deck out like within some sort of at least semi-urgent, like as quick as you possibly can time frame. And I was just like, but why would we have to do that? And then the email popped up and I was like, that's why we have to do that. But the thing is, and this is a topic of interest anyway, and I'm passionate about it. And whether it's delusional or not, I feel, obviously, since I've been connected to the subject matter intimately since I was born, and also it affects like all the different members going way, way back on one particular side of my family, it's like, that's the interest I have in this. That's why I want to know. And I guess I will, like, you have no idea how angry I'll be if I find out this is some, like, Time Lord fucking occultist CIA agent who's just MK Ultra'd us all. But I want to talk about, like, contemporary MK Ultra. And how that just goes on organically, day to day. And because that ties into, when I say it doesn't matter if the email's real or not, it's just about introducing the idea into everybody's minds. Like, that is contemporary MK Ultra. Like, releasing, it's like this setting, like, I guess it's kind of like people think it's like, oh, it's predictive programming because they want to like prime us for something that they are going to do. And I don't think it's as simple as that. I think that it's like, I don't think everything's like predictive programming, obviously, but I do think that there's stuff that they're just gonna like drop in, because in order for something to manifest in consensus reality, people have to be primed for it. So it's not just so much like they're in control of everything. Like, no, we have control over that, because if enough people just went, that doesn't exist, that's fake, that's not a real alien, then the alien might as well not exist. But as far as like channelers and like independent people purporting like you need to follow us for all of the exclusive information like on the beings, the way that game, because it's all a power play, right? Whenever anybody's saying something like that, it's a power play and a money grab. Because, you know, if I control the alien narrative, like obviously that makes me a very important person and people are gonna give me money. So the angle with like channelers and things like that is they would be coming at it from an angle like, well, you can't trust the government, but you can trust us. Like, we are actually telling you the truth about like the beings and everything else. And we were telling you since like before they were going to tell you, so you should pay us like all this money and only listen to us about like what information we have about the beings. That's how that's played that way. And to me, if there was actually going to be like a form of disclosure where like we are somehow like living alongside of beings, or there's like a cadre of beings or whatever, and somehow like experiencers are confirmed and the abduction stuff is confirmed, and based on everything that I'm getting with like the stuff that's going along with that deck, right, which makes sense for why Sean Ryan would have had like Billy Carson and a lot of like I'm telling y'all, there's a reason why, if they're about to pop off with disclosure, that a lot of like the really like woo-woo people have been on that show. I am telling you, like, you cannot be attached to like religion. You really can't. Like, if you are super attached to like a religious, I'm not saying you can't have a religious tradition, but like part of this is like, people are gonna be real upset, like real upset. And so that, like, that part of it, that's why like all the Christian, because I'm just like, when the Christians want control too, because the Christians have a vested interest in like a particular type of Christian. Like, they don't want you looking at any sort of like, there's a vested interest in like, that's actually demons. That's demons. That's not like, that's like the Antichrist and blah, blah, blah. And like, you need to only believe in God, which only Christianity has access to, because we're the only ones who have Jesus. And so you actually all need, like, all of it is such an energy harvest. It's crazy to me. And the thing is, if the aliens pop off, and so first of all, if the aliens popped off and there was actually like experiencers confirmed, abductees confirmed, the government's been knowing it, confirmed, all of it, that's going to be so fucked up. But the thing is, like, it wouldn't be one experiencer who's in charge of like speaking to the beings. There would be like a bunch of them who would probably be like offered jobs or whatever, because they already have like pre-existing relationships essentially. And it's sort of like, well, we're totally sorry that we experimented on you and did all this shit to y'all, but would you like to come work? Would you like to come work for us now? We'll set y'all up for life. And it's just like, that's the way it would go. And I can already see now that if that's the way that goes, there are going to be so many people that are just like, you see, they are speaking for the demons and they're actually witches. And then the fact that the occult is so intertwined, there's no getting away from it. There is no getting away from like magic and spirituality being so deeply entwined with this. There's really not. All these people, at least with the aliens that I'm talking about and that disclosure would be happening about, because that's coming through the government, it's interdimensional. Like, it might be interstellar, but there's no way you're getting away from interdimensional. You're absolutely not. And that is all like, according to our current way of discussing things, magic and spirituality. They like, that's why I'm just like, there's no way that this is going to pop off, because they would have to, in order to explain this, they would have to make magic and spirituality a quantifiably real thing. That is like, that would have to happen. That would have to happen, and people would have to be okay with that. And I do not know. And the thing is, the Vatican has been like planting these seeds for a while, because every so often the Vatican like pops up and is just like, oh yeah, we're like, we would be cool with like the aliens being here because like they're part of like our spiritual community. I'm just like, oh. It's only like the hardcore evangelicals that are like, demons! And like, I kind of get it, to be real with you. I actually do kind of get it, because they would essentially destroy a particular idea of someone's faith. So you would have to make that an enemy in order to preserve your own social power. And that's why I am just like, there's no way, because then you would also have the faction of channelers that, like, if you became an experiencer who then went to go like work with the government aliens or whatever to like get a job, if there are different alien, like, I'm guarantee you there are like all kinds of different aliens as well, because they're like, oh no, those are actually like the bad aliens and we're the good aliens. You can't trust those government aliens. I'm telling you, it is going to be, if this is how it happens, it is going to be the biggest shit show. But we would not die in like nuclear, like whatever, I don't think. Yeah, like that would be subverted, which is also great, but still, can you imagine? Can you imagine if that starts happening? And the thing is, I don't even know, like if experiencers are confirmed and I'm one of them, I don't even know that I would at least, like, if the government popped up and was like, you can like meet an alien like in person, like you get to, because like they abducted you, I'd be like, oh. But even I would be sitting there, I'm just like, I feel like they're playing like an elaborate hoax on me. I feel like this is like a person in a suit. Obviously, I've given this like extensive thought. I was like, wow, how would they actually do this? But the thing that continues to make me nervous is how politicized it is. Because if the disclosure is just like, they pop off with some kind of like advanced technology that they say is like back engineered, and then they just say, oh yeah, and like aliens gave it to us, and that's it, but they don't show any aliens, and they don't like, it's just this technology that's the disclosure. I don't think, like, to me, I don't think that's gonna really do anything for anybody other than like try and psyop like foreign governments that we have like super special alien technology, or they're aware that another government's going to try and pull that psyop on us, so they're doing the psyop first. Can you imagine? That would be the stupidest, like, I don't want stupid disclosure. Like, if it's all just like one big psyop, but we all have to kind of go along with it, so like one government doesn't like get psychological supremacy over another. That's so, it's not funny, but it kind of is. It kind of is, to be real with you. But if I am right and I have not been ensorcelled by weird time traveling, you know, CIA agents, that is not the case, and the glowing whites are in fact real. And there are other sorts of aliens, it's just that I have no frame of reference for them. And when we get to the glowing white, like, Big Master episode, after I finish the deck, like, even I have, so, because glowing white is obviously like not what they're called. It's just kind of how they look to you if you've seen them, but I don't even think that that's really how they look. Because I've asked before, I remember back when, like, because the reason why, like, when I started years ago, like, doing a bit more research, I was like, why do I keep seeing these glowing like white? Because I had no background in like ufology or high strangeness, like nothing. And I started looking stuff up, and the first thing that people tend to hit is the Galactic Federation. And I was just like, well, this is what they look like. And then I remember asking, because like if you do like a visual form of meditation, they will pop up looking that way. They super well. So I have actually seen in meditation, not in real life. The only thing I've seen in real life is a glowing white. And the glowing whites, and that's who I got abducted by. But I have seen, my mind's eye, I have seen one, I'm gonna say this has nothing to do with Jewish people. One reptilian, I've seen it. And like, I'm gonna say he, I don't even know if it was a he, but he was wearing a cloak. And he was like pretty chill. That alien was pretty chill, if real, right? But the thing is, that reptilian's lore was, he was like a, not excommunicated, he was like a banished warlord or something. He was like a huge like traitor to his like community and had worked on some sort of like peace negotiations, and that's why all the other reptilians like hated his ass. So like, maybe truth to whatever the truth about reptilians is, which has nothing to do with Jewish people, okay? Nothing. And then I've also seen, I don't know what they are. I don't think they're no. It's like I haven't seen what they look like. They just look like people in robes. It's like they're on spaceships, and it's just like tall beings, I guess you want to say, but it looks like they're wearing monk's robes, but you like can't see their faces. It's like super cartoony. It's like all you can see is like black, and you can't see their hands or their feet either. They just look like they're wearing robes. And when I saw them, there were a bunch of them standing in a circle, and I was floating above them. I have no idea. None. And then I have also seen one which you would call like Nordic, I guess, because that's when I was like, oh, all this does like make sense. And like, yeah, this person kind of lives in like a very beautiful garden, and they're like very tall and blonde with blue eyes, and I don't even know what the shit that is. And so then I started looking all this stuff up, and that's how I discovered the Galactic Federation. And when you do something like that, you can go, oh, so like there's a reality to this, which is true. But then like I directly asked them, I was like, are y'all actually like the Galactic Federation? And is this how y'all really look? They said no. They said, we just look this way because that's what you're able to understand. And that's why I get kind of like don't kind of fuck with the Galactic Federation. And it's sort of like, don't really fuck with like something that a channeler is telling you, or like a more woo-woo person or whatever. It's sort of like, usually, unless the person is a complete fucking liar, which exists, there's usually some truth to what they're saying, but like, just don't take it literally. It's like, the experience is real and you are having an encounter with like something, but like, don't take what it looks like so seriously. And don't take the narrative like absolutely literally. It's sort of like, because there's like this great big like interaction barrier and language barrier, it's sort of like the essence of what people are saying is true, but it's probably not, like all the specifics and everything else is probably not literally true. And so a glowing white probably, even though I've seen those like in person, I would guess that they probably don't look that way. I don't know, maybe they do. I'm hearing no. Sean Ryan is who Lou Elizondo was supposed to be. And Lou Elizondo just tried to keep himself relevant long enough so he could like sidle up to like whoever the next president was gonna be. But it's not him, it's this Sean Ryan guy. I'm just like, that's where it's gonna come from, because he's also kind of the new like Joe Rogan, but not as much of a bonehead, right? I'm not saying that Sean Ryan is any more credible than Joe Rogan, but they present that way. And looks matter. It matters. Because the other Intel guy who has a big following, he's like kind of a big, like kind of nerdy looking dude. That is immediately like the people who are tagging him, and I knew it was I was like, oh, optically, this looks like, even if that guy is super telling the truth, which he's an Intel guy too, so who the fuck knows? But let's say that guy is absolutely right, that like Sean Ryan, all of them are like freaking liars. Because he looks the way he does, less people are going to take him seriously. And that's unfortunate, especially if he is the one who's telling the truth. But like I said, it doesn't even matter. All that matters is the idea is in the community. And if they can string together the narrative for the disclosure, that's all that matters, is the disclosure and who does it, not if the narrative is actually true. It's to get the shit done for whatever reason that it needs to be done, because if you don't think that these aliens have agendas too, that would be incorrect. Of course they do, because there's a lot of these like secret societies in the occult. That's what they're all dealing with, is aliens, like interdimensional aliens, non-human beings, and they're not all in touch with the same one, right? There are multiple gods and all of that. So to me, disclosure the way we're getting it now, and from like everything that I see like historically in that Sean Ryan show, if this pops off, this is about to be the craziest shit on the planet. The craziest shit on the planet. I don't know how SETI factors into this. I really don't. Because I would say, like, if you want like physical disclosure or whatever, like an actual in the flesh, like alien coming from another planet that is like in our dimension and universe, don't even worry about the government or a channeler. That's SETI. That's super SETI. So I don't know. I just feel like all of this is like super outlandish, and I don't even understand how it would happen. But like, again, a lot of people who don't know each other at all are super fucking confident about some form of disclosure happening this year, the first quarter of this year. I have heard so many people saying this, and I am just like, that's why I'm just like, something's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I know something's gonna happen, probably. It's just, what is it? What is it? And then if it doesn't happen, that's when I'm asking like other questions that are outside of the beings are real. At least in this case with stuff like that, right? Because then I'm kind of like, well, okay, but is this a Time Lord, magic CIA thought form? You know, that like they somehow magic spelled into people? I don't think so though. I'm gonna know, but I mean, why would the CIA magical thought forms like confirm? Like, why would they confirm what they are? You know what I mean? I do not need psychedelics of any sort because I'm just like this on my own. Don't need them, girl. And also, I have plenty of psychedelic experiences in meditation. You don't need substances to have that, just FYI. Because I have seen, oh, that's the other being that I saw who's like really like, I don't know who they are, but they're like, they're more powerful than the glowing whites, but I don't really have a lot of information on these beings. But they're like above, they're somehow related to the glowing whites because they also glow, but they're like higher, they're like more powerful. And I don't think they're gonna pop out. I don't know. They're purple, that they're like glowing violet, and they have lots of heads. And I kind of related those to like cherubim, but like specifically like these aren't angels, but there's like weird obviously correspondences between that. But the glowing violet ones, I've only encountered that once. And I've heard that other people who have encountered them have been people on DMT. And so I'm just like, well, I've never taken DMT. So it's possible for people to have these experiences or see these things without DMT. So like, I don't know. Because I've also heard that like the clowns, like I told you, the Jack appears as like a clown, like a yellow jester or a yellow harlequin. And people say they see clowns when they're on DMT. Also, something that's been popping up in my feed lately that I found extremely interesting was, I had never heard of this. Sam, the Sandown clown, who goes, like when he introduced himself to those kids, he went by All Colors Sam, or like Sam All Colors. And I found that so freaking interesting, being that I'm telling you about, oh, there's a yellow jack and a black jack and a red jack. And then we have All Colors Sam. Have not met All Colors Sam. But I feel like All Colors Sam is actually extremely important. Extremely important. Also interesting about All Colors Sam and that incident with the kids is that he told them and then sketched out for them that there were other clowns. He's like, oh yeah, I'm just kind of like one of my kind. And like, there's actually a lot. And here's like some sketches of like what we, and I was just like, of course there are other clowns. Of course there are. But I was interested in that, and I was also interested. What the hell was I interested in? Oh, that he had a microphone. That's very interesting to me, based on information that has been imparted to me by the glowing whites, which will also eventually be imparted to you. But just paying attention to like how that has like shown up historically. There was another point I wanted to make about that, and now I don't know what it was. Sam the Sandown clown. That there were other, oh, and that like when they asked him, because it's normal to ask, like, are you a ghost? Right? And he was like, not really, but kind of, sort of. And I was just like, because the thing is, that kind of, sort of thing, the Jack is different from whatever the glowing whites are. Like the glowing whites, like I know they show up as like, if you see them, they kind of like, in that form, they kind of seem a bit like intangible, unless you've been abducted and then they're not. Which there's a reason for that, but they can like make themselves like more tangible. It's just that it's, at this point, it's easier for them not to do that. And that has to do with the Jack and the process with the Jack. But the Jack is like completely different than them. So the Jack, like I'm saying, the Jack is, I try not to, I probably have called the Jack like an alien clown or something like that. That's like something like totally different. Like totally different. Because I don't think, like, I don't know that the Jack is ever tangible. I mean, no, but they can like, it's like they possess people. I don't know. Well, that's true because I'm saying that like, not Hunter. I don't know why I was gonna say Hunter S. Thompson, though that would make a certain kind of sense, right? Jordan Peterson, that is that man's name, right? The Christian guy? He got possessed by the clown. Oof, that was bad. That's why he is the way he is now. So I thought that was interesting, him saying like, oh, well, I'm not really a ghost, but I am, kind of. And it's like, yeah, he is, kind of. Because that clown is like not material unless they embody somebody. But anyway, that like I'm interested to see now kind of what goes on with the inauguration and who gets picked to do what and what information is released through where and what is that information going to be.